Hello everybody, welcome back to I Dream of Indie. Ole Gamer Joe here with you for another review. Today we're looking at the TakeOver, developed by Pelican 13. It is an arcade action brawler for up to 2 players. Released onto the Switch as of June 4th, 2020. It had previously been released on Steam in 2019. This one will also be heading to the PlayStation 4, though at the time of this review, the date has not been announced for that version. The TakeOver does not disguise the fact that it's trying to emulate 90s style beat-em-ups, and it does so with some success, also adding some of its own unique twist to the genre. You can hit the streets alone, or you can choose to play in local co-op in the TakeOver. However you end up deciding to play, there are 3 modes to choose from, including an arcade mode, which features some fun comic book cutscenes between each level, a survival mode, which is of course about how long you can make it on a single life, and a challenge mode, which allows you to take on different tasks, including picking up all the stars off of fallen enemies, or not using a special ability for the duration of a level. We went through the arcade mode on normal difficulty. There are 3 to choose from in this game: easy, normal, and hard, and that took about 2.5 hours and felt like a pretty fair challenge for the most part. And the combat in the TakeOver is actually pretty fun. You'll use a combination of the B and A buttons, which are your punches and kicks, to continually pummel away at a variety of different enemies. Sometimes you can even air juggle these enemies and continue to beat on them that way. If you're able to successfully take down enemies without taking a lot of damage yourself, eventually you'll fill up your super meter, which allows for you to unleash a screen-filling missile strike. Outside of that, the Y button allows for a more personalized special attack that will drain your health a little bit, as you would expect in this genre. The TakeOver even allows for you to run and roll in this game. You can hold back the ZL trigger if you want to run, or you can tap forward twice, and tapping down or up twice will allow you to do a roll. I can definitely appreciate the ability to run in this game, as it does quicken the pace a bit, but I found that the roll was not super necessary, though now that I think back on it, maybe it would have been helpful in dodging some of the many barrels that will come at you in this game. Each character also includes a gun in the TakeOver, and you can use that by holding back the ZR trigger and hitting the action button. However, you will have limited ammo. You'll also be able to pick up different guns off different enemies along the way. And of course, there's a decent variety of pipes and other obscure weapons that you can beat your foes down with. So there's a good variety to the gameplay here, and it all feels pretty good for the most part. I enjoyed the combo system. Every character that you play as in this game does feel different enough from one another, and because of the fact that there's a choice to be made at the end of the game, it makes it worth going through the 2.5 hour arcade mode more than once. Graphically, the TakeOver is an interesting one. I don't know how I ultimately felt about it. It's certainly a unique art style, using pre-rendered resolution character sprites. It almost looked like they were actually digitized characters that were drawn over. There is a lot of detail to the backgrounds though, and they look quite beautiful. It's the mix of character and background that I'm not so sure that I liked. I have to say, I never played a game that looks like the TakeOver for sure. I was almost reminded of the early Mortal Kombat games at certain points, but on the whole, I wasn't a big fan of the way the characters looked, but I was a fan of the backgrounds. And those comic book cutscenes between each level that I talked about a little bit earlier really do look fantastic. Great art design. So overall, opinions may vary on how the TakeOver looks. Some may like the art style, some may not. I'm kinda somewhere in between. That said, I think we will all agree that the soundtrack is really quite good in the TakeOver, featuring the musical talents of Little V Mills, Richie Branson, James Ronald, and the legendary Yuzo Koshiro. Most of the tracks are of the rock variety, but there's a good mix here, and there are some tracks that I wasn't quite expecting to hear in a brawler, but I still was able to enjoy, and the sound effects aren't bad either. I could have done without the mediocre voice acting in the comic book cutscenes. However, they don't really add anything to the game. In fact, they're a little bit of a distraction. The TakeOver did remind me of Streets of Rage 3 perhaps more than any other brawler. It's a weird game in a lot of ways. You'll come across a lot of different level types and some really odd enemies too, but it has its charms too, including a combo system which is easy enough for players to get into but difficult to master. While the art design wasn't my favorite, the sound design is quite good in this game. I laughed at all of the different noises and grunts that enemies would make when I defeated them, and I really did like this rocking soundtrack. The TakeOver isn't the best brawler I've ever played, but it's certainly not the worst, and there's a lot of fun to be had, especially in co-op. There's enough bonus features to keep you busy for a while after you completed the arcade mode a few times. If you like your arcade brawlers a little bit on the weird side and are hungry to add another one to your library, then the TakeOver is a welcome addition. We hope you enjoyed today's review of the TakeOver. If you did, please do consider hitting the subscribe button below so that you can help us to bring a voice to the voiceless ones in gaming. If you really like us, head on down to the description box below where there's a ton of other ways for you to support us. Thank you so much however you end up supporting I Dream of Indie.